Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Casual Sports Podcast. As always, I'm Alec Caberna. That's Matt Morrison. That's Mike Wolfgang here. It's Thursday. You guys know what that means. College football talk. We'll start things out with the question of the day. We're going to get into some of the other sports here first before we go college. That way, we finally get to talk some other things on here. It's not just football going on. Yeah. But question of the day from yesterday. Who is the highest drafted kicker in NFL history? Morton Anderson, Jason Alam, Charlie Gogolak, Pete Gogolak, or Adam Vinatieri? Matt, do you know?
No, I do not. Was it Vinatieri?
What do you, Mike?
I do not know either.
Answer that one, Charlie Gogolak.
I was going to say Vinatieri, but...
Yeah, Gogolak was taken 6th overall in the 66th draft. How'd you take a kicker 6th overall?
Oh, yeah.
Jeez.
What year?
1966.
Different age back
by Washington.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Well, question of the day for today. Which two of these players are brothers-in-law? A.J. Hawk, Clay Matthews, Brady Quinn, Matt Ryan, Tim Tebow. Which two of those? So pick any two that are you think are related, brothers-in-law. Leave your answer somewhere. Come on back tomorrow, see if you can get it right. Boys, let's get into it. Postseason baseball has been spectacular so far this season. And we're getting some treats down the stretch here. Houston, Boston is looking like a competitive series in the ALCS. I mean, it's back and forth. Who's putting up double-digit runs tonight is the team that's winning. I mean, it's been, balls over the wall insane. So they've been hitting it out of the park. It's been great so far in the ALCS. Why don't we talk about that here a little bit first? I mean, you look at the series right now, and it kind of feels like Houston's had, the big advantage so far in it. But, it's still just 3-2, and they're only up one game. What are you guys feeling about this series right now in the ALCS?
So like I said with the Red Sox, I mean, that's why they're winning some games in the series and so far in the playoffs because they're pitching. And the Astros weren't able to deal with that they won game 1, but 2 and 3, weren't able to deal with it. And then late in game 4, I think it was, they were down and their bats woke up. I mean, like I've been saying, that their lineup's deadly. It's been deadly for a couple years now, and they make the most contact out of any team in the league, so...
Well, not 2 straight wins for the Astros, too. And you look at it, when they've won, it's been 9 runs. They lose when they hit 3. I mean, you look at the winner in this one, in the series so far, Astros win at scoring 9. Astros win at scoring 9. Red Sox win at scoring 12. Red Sox win at scoring 9. Astros win at scoring 5 to open up the first one. So, since that first game, it has been bats away.
Yeah.
I mean, you look down at these final 2 games, they get a travel day heading back to Houston for these final 2. If needed, they need the other one. Do you guys see Astros taking a sweep here in, what would that be? Saturday?
Saturday, yeah.
No, Friday.
Oh, yeah,
Friday.
They played last night.
Do they finish off the series here this Friday, or Boston force Game 7 on the road?
It's going to be tough to do it on the road.
Houston has not announced their pitcher yet.
That's what I was going to look at here.
Eovaldi pitching for the Red Sox.
Nathan Eovaldi's tough.
He is very tough.
I think he could win them in Game 6. I'm going 7.
Yeah, I say go 7 games
All right.
as well.
Well, postseason career stats, he's 4-2 when pitching. So, I mean, I think it'll depend on what happens on the other end, what happens with, the Astros, obviously, because if they can keep the bats out like they have, 18 runs in 2 games, it's either, they stay strong and the bats stay hot, or they get tired. Well, I mean, I think it's just a battle of attrition right now, who stays strongest the longest, and whichever guy can, really hold through in the end. I think it's the team that's going to win it. I mean, you look at this one. We'll go over to the other side now. The NLCS, Dodgers fall down 3-1, same spot they were in last year, Matt. In the NLCS to the Atlanta Braves. Dodgers made the comeback before. Can they do it again, Mike?
I mean, I'm not going to say they can't because they did it last year. They're defending champs, and like I told Matt,
same team, but they've gotten better. They've added more power hitting.
I mean, Matt was talking last night when we were texting about this game. All the injuries the Dodgers have with Muncy and guys like out, but
Turner,
they still have tons of depth.
They still have tons of depth.
That's what the Dodgers have been known for the last few years. Is their insane depth. I mean, there's not many teams in the league that have more depth than they do. I mean, I know Albert Pujols isn't what he is, but he's coming off the bench for them. They have Matt Beatty that's been starting some games for them at first base. So first base wise, you lose a lot with Max Muncy. Don't get me wrong, but they've been able to be steady there, and they've woken some guys up. I mean, Cody Bellinger's woken up in this play, and especially in the series, but in the playoffs overall, he had a very bad year this year, and he's been able to wake up. So I'm not going to say they can't do it.
You still have guys like Mookie Betts and Seager.
Well, Game 5 for that tonight, 8:08. Freed up on the mound for Atlanta this night.
Max Fried, great young left-hander. I think he'd be the one to do it tonight. I mean, the bullpen for the Dodgers, besides Jansen, is not very good. I'm not going to say they're horrible, but they're not very good.
I mean, they've kind of rode their way into these playoffs on the strength of that bullpen, though, with their amount of depth that they have. But I don't think you can necessarily count them out at this point.
No.
I mean, it's just the bullpen's going through a slump. If they come right back out of it, this is a series the Dodgers can flip right on its head and turn it around and take it in 7.
But the Braves bullpen scares me even more. You know, you guys like Jackson. But AJ Minter had a great outing last night, and so did Drew Smyly, who's like an unsung hero. And then you have Eddie Rosario, who didn't hit anything in Cleveland, and he almost hit a,
I told you guys it wasn't that good when you guys got him.
No.
I mean, he's good.
He hit for he almost hit for the cycle. He could have hit a double on his last at bat, but instead.
If it means anything, I liked him in Cleveland.
I like him.
I like him.
I'm not saying he stinks.
He could have hit a double and got the cycle last night, but instead he hit another home run and made it 9-2. So,
I mean, Matt, I talked about yesterday with this on the show. I mean, AJ Minter pitched in Game 3, and he had some key strikeouts in that game.
Yeah.
So I was looking last night in that pitching matchup because they used him as the opener because they didn't have an actual starter last night. Yeah. And I was comfortable with that because you send him out there for 2 innings, let him get through the order once, which they do when you use openers. They do anytime with starting pitching anyways in the playoffs. But he was a guy I was comfortable with because he's only allowed, he has, I think his ERA last night before his start was 0 in this series.
I like their closer too, Will Smith.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then Will Smith for the Dodgers.
Their bullpen, I wouldn't say I trust it. They have guys like Luke Jackson doesn't stink.
Yeah, but he's scary. He's either on or off.
In the previous series, he was good against the Brewers. He's either on or off, and that's what you do when you live and die by your bullpen. I mean, that's what it is this time of year. I mean, you're going against good lineups. You're going to live and die by it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think the one bright side right now for the Dodgers, they get to play this one at home once more tonight. Last of 3 straight they took. The first one at home, dropped the second, and I mean they won that first one on a major comeback. They were almost in the same spot last night, down 5-2. They didn't make the comeback. Instead, Braves added on to their big lead, made it 9-2 instead. But I think they need to take this final. I mean, obviously they need to take this one here tonight to gain some momentum at home. They'll get one travel day, and then they'll head back into Atlanta for those final 2 if they can pull off the win here tonight. So it's just going to be wait and see time. Do you think Atlanta ends it here tonight, Matt?
I think they have a pretty good chance. I like Fried on the mound, and they really have adjusted their outfield help. They lost Ronald Acuna Jr., and a lot of people said, oh no, but then they added, Jock Peterson, who's, a pretty great outfielder, and he adds another bat to the lineup as well. And then, I mean, you guys got in the infield too, Ozzie Albies and Austin Riley. I mean, they're pretty good at their positions, and then you probably have one of the best first basemen in the game, in Freddie Freeman.
So you can argue he is.
You can argue he is. It's arguable.
But I think tonight, the first 2 games in LA, it was kind of surprising. I wouldn't say surprising because the Braves have been hot, but they jumped out to early leads in these games. I mean, they were only able to hold one of them, so I'm not going to say they can't force another or can't close it out tonight, which I think they can. But I don't see in potentially being the Dodgers' last home game. I don't see them losing their last home game. It's just, I mean, it's going to be a tough pitching matchup. They got Max Fried on, like we said, for the Braves, but the Dodgers are using an opener. They got Corey Knebel starting it out, so they're going to use their bullpen. They're going to have to use that if they want to extend the series. Because, like you said, Alec, it's win or go home.
Right at this point, bats are up.
It's all hands on deck right now.
8:07.
Yeah. Well, I guess we'll see. Moving on here, early candidate in the NBA for Game of the Year. First one of the season for both teams goes to double overtime. Knicks pick up the win over the Boston Celtics, 138-134. Stats from this game out of this world for Mr. Jaylen Brown. 46 points and on 53.3% from the field. Great night for him. Nearly had himself a double-double as well. It wasn't enough. Jason Tatum couldn't score. He was getting locked up all night by R.J. Barrett. And this New York Knicks squad, it's looking like the same playoff squad we saw last year. Julius Randle held this lineup strong, 35 points to lead the team. And Evan Fournier pick up from Orlando Magic, 32 points in this game as well. So it was a good performance. It'll be Toppin starting to find his rhythm a little bit. I went more. Went 6 for 9, 14 points in this game. It was okay, but I think we need to expect more out of a lot of rookies because we're seeing some of these rookies come right in immediately and make massive differences. Ja Morant, you look at Memphis, without Ja Morant, we don't know if that team would even be a playoff team. I mean, they'd be good, but Ja Morant puts them over the edge, right? Obi Toppin can take this team from being, the New York Knicks, 5 seed in the playoffs, to a potential top 2 team in the NBA if he can find a stride. And that same thing goes for R.J. Barrett now in his 3rd season as well.
Yeah, and by the way, Evan Fournier, he was from the Celtics. Last year he was with the Magic, and then he Celtics. They got him.
Well, he wasn't the Magic.
He was.
He was in the Olympics.
Most of the year he
He
was.
was in the Olympics, and that's where they picked him up. He did
okay.
pretty good in the Olympic run.
Kemba Walker only 10 points in that game.
Yeah, Kemba
what do you guys think, though?
against this
Double
team.
overtime to start out the season here?
So I kept checking this because I was checking a bunch of scores. Obviously, I was watching the Cavs go back and forth in baseball games, but I was looking at the score and it was close in the fourth quarter, and I checked back a few minutes later and it was overtime. I kept checking back and went into second overtime. I mean, it was a close game. I mean, Knicks, like you said, Alec, they're getting on some of these teams' levels because you get a guy like Kemba Walker, and look how deep they are. You still have Julius Randle, who's the
You
guy
have
last year.
Emmanuel quickly on the bench too. He only had 2 points last night, but he proved last year that he can score.
Yeah.
That he did. Another great game and a massive comeback for the Charlotte Hornets to take down the Pacers 123-122. It was a huge comeback and was led by, obviously, LaMelo Ball. 31 points for him in that comeback. Gordon Hayward, though, looking like him old self. Had 45.5% shooting, 50% from 3, and had 27 points in this game. We haven't seen Gordon Hayward play that well in quite some time, and you gotta love Miles Bridges with 13 points as well. He's a great young guy. Kelly Oubre with 14. Ish Smith with 14. Cody Martin with 10. So many guys in double digits. It makes it pretty easy to make a comeback when anybody can score.
Yeah, and you set this comeback. They made a huge, I don't forget how much they were trailing by, but it was like a 7-minute comeback or something like that. So they were on a roll last night. You ran through the scoring. That's how you get back into games, when you get on runs and you get guys in double digits.
Yeah, I mean, Indiana still outscored Charlotte in that final quarter, but you look at the third. 33-13, Charlotte outscored Indiana. That's where your comeback is right there. They down by 11 at the end of the first, and they get outscored even more, so they're down 16, and then they make a huge rally, come up and, now up by 4 going to the final quarter, and they just close it out. 1 point shy of losing this game. But, I mean, some early great games, and I think obviously we want to talk about the Cleveland Cavaliers. Mike, you and I both were watching this one. Matt, you were watching playoff baseball.
Yeah.
I loved what I saw out of the Cavs last night. They gave a strong performance.
I wasn't disappointed.
The one downside I keep seeing from Cleveland, though, every time it looked like they were getting close, they went from playing team basketball to individual ball. Like the ball stopped moving every time they got within 4 points, and it just became turnover. It became selfish basketball. And you stop seeing the team develop. And I think that's where this team takes their next step. You look, Jared Allen, 25 points. Mobley, debut with the Cavs, perfect. I loved his performance.
17 points, solid.
And he was dominant in the paint. I mean, he was all over the place, and 9 rebounds, 6 assists. The guy had a block and a steal to his credit. And I just love what I saw out of him. I think he needs to work a little bit more on defense, and that'll come with playing more in the NBA, getting more consistent there, because there's a few, I'll say, blown coverages that he missed there. But, I think it's a great start for a guy like Evan Mobley, and could be the face of the franchise come the next few seasons.
Yeah, he definitely will be. But you were talking about, when they're getting back and, down 2, 3, 4, 5 points, they're getting themselves back in after they're trailing like 15 or 16. Yeah, I looked at stuff like that with like individual trying to do too much. But I also take it a step further. You got to be able to stop some guys. I mean, they get right back into it, and you got to go right down the lane for a layup. I mean, you got to take some pride on the defensive end, and that's something I've worried about with this. As I don't know if I said it yesterday, but it's something I had worried about with them coming into the season. Was the interior defense are going to be fine. You look at the guys that they have trees, and you have Jared Allen, you have Mobley, you have Markkanen, you have other guys that can play down middle. But the perimeter defense kind of concerns me, because the only guy you really have that can guard anybody on the perimeter is Isaac Okoro. So I'd like to see
even
more.
then, he really didn't have a great day. In his second season, just 8 points on this day, 3 rebounds and assists. I mean, it was just not the performance we're looking at for a guy like him. But I think one guy you really have to highlight: 17 minutes, 1 for 6 from the field, 0 for 2 from the 3-point line. Kevin Love on a $30 million contract plays 17 minutes and gets just 4 points. At this point, he's not getting re-signed, right? Please tell me he's not getting re-signed after this.
No, he's just waiting it out.
It has to be time. But I think there was a lot of talk last season about Cedi Osman. He came out and showed he can still play, and he deserves a spot on this roster.
Started off with three straight threes.
Yeah, I mean, he had 15 points in this game. He cooled off after that, but he still went 5 for 6 in the entire game. I think it just came one of those things. He came off the bench quickly, and then he just kind of was like, all right, I did my part. You guys go do yours. I'll feed you the ball. Go do it.
You know what, Alec, and like I talked about,
I've always been a Jetty fan, so.
Oh, I
like him.
He's easy to root for. But I talked about with them,
he's a fan favorite.
It's like, there's a lot of things I wanted to see them improve. I mean, they still play good in this game, but there's like, especially the perimeter defense is what I want to see fixed more. But like that, I don't know if I told you last night, but the thing I like the most is how deep they're able to go. I mean, Kevin Love, we talk about him all the time, but he's coming off the bench and he's only playing like 20 minutes. But other than him, you bring Jetty Osman out. Look how deep they went on the bench. Look how many guys played.
Ricky Rubio.
You bring Jetty Osman off the bench. You bring all these guys off the bench. Is what works for a lot of teams. Using your depth and your numbers and subbing out guys early so it keeps guys coming in and out. And
they only were going with a 9-man lineup, but as you were saying, it felt like they were not letting any one guy stay out there too long.
Yeah, they weren't.
Unless they were hot. Lauri Markkanen in his start, I think I liked a lot of what we saw. I think he just hasn't found his rhythm yet with the team. I mean, he still had just 10 points. He didn't shoot very well, but I think he was kind of locked on the inside. No one was really getting past him. And I think the same goes for Jared Allen. I mean, 11-11 from the field, and he was just all over the paint, 3 blocks. I loved it when we picked him up out of the Nets, and he was a great pickup. I loved him. Go back. He gets the block on LeBron James, and since then I loved him. I mean, he's a guy not afraid to take it to whoever, whenever, and he'll go up and meet you at the rim.
He will go. And I like the other players they have on this bench that didn't necessarily play in this game. Lamar Stevens, they can go to him. He proved that he can play. And, Denzel Valentine, I mean, he's been jumping teams a while, but he was, excellent in college for Michigan State. I don't know if you guys remember that, but they have depth on this, roster. And, they have Taco Fall, too. I'm sure you can insert him somewhere, and he'll just,
Yeah, currently on a 2-way contract as well as Denzel Valentine as well.
Okay.
And, Kevin Pangos is out. He's a guy like them signing internationally. He's a guy who can come off the bench and play guard for them. So they have
He's an older guy, but he's a really good guard. He'll sit in right behind Darius Garland, Colin Sexton, and Ricky Rubio. He'll be one of those big guys they bring in, and I think he'll probably take a majority of those minutes away from guys like Kevin Love and Rubio. Rubio playing 24 minutes in this game, I think, is going to get brought down a little more, and you're not going to get 38 consistently out of a rookie in Evan Mobley. You're not going to have that guy play 40 minutes a game every night. So a lot of minutes can definitely be sent off to somebody else, and once Pangos is back as well, and of course I think as the season goes on, injuries start adding up. Guys like Lamar Stevens are going to be back on there. R.J. Nembhard Jr., Taco Fall, Ed Davis. Ed Davis, the big center that we have, and he's a little bit older, but he brings some nice experience to the team, and if they can bring him in, he's a big guy too that's going to be locked down on defense.
Yeah, and like I said, they're going deep with all these guys, but pretty soon they'll be able to figure out their rotations. I mean, I still don't even think their starting lineup's set in stone yet. I mean, they had Markkanen starting last night at the 3. I mean,
what did you think of the starting lineup?
I wasn't too...
Darius at the 1, Sexton at the 2, Markkanen at 3, Mobley at 4, Jared Allen at 5. I liked it.
I wasn't too bothered.
I like bringing a Corridor and Osman off the bench.
I like that too, but I don't know. I don't know if Markkanen's a 3. I'd probably play him more at the 4.
I mean, he's a 7-footer, so yeah.
So he can move. Right there, he can move for his size, but it's like
I want to see him into the league as a small forward or power forward, one of the two. So
yeah,
I think he can play the position. It's just I think he'll get blown by against some of the faster guys. But I think the one big side for the Cavs, when we have to go up against teams like the Nets and the Bucks, big, strong teams, we have some way to compete inside for rebounds. Cleveland has been a team that has been out-rebounded. When you get out-rebounded, offensive rebounds, they kick it back out and you have guys wide open at the 3. And now it feels like the Cavs can do that same thing. And it feels like they're catching up. To the rest of the league right now in how to play the game. Obviously, a lot of young guys, so a lot of room to go in this. But I think you have to flip this over real quick to the other side. Ja Morant, you got to say right now, I think he's the best young talent in the NBA, maybe besides Luka Doncic. But Ja Morant right now, 37 points in this game, 58% shooting. I mean, their entire team was fantastic shooting the ball last night besides Jaren Jackson Jr. He was the one guy that had an off night, and they played 11 or 10 deep in this game. They were fantastic, and Ja Morant, I'd have to say, I think he's better than Derrick Rose ever was.
I would say so, too.
Absolutely.
I mean, D. Rose won an MVP, and I know everybody wants to hang on to that season, and, the knee injuries, this, knee injuries, that. Ja Morant does it every night. He took Derrick Rose's special season and made it his everyday.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you really can't argue it.
If John Morant continues to progress in the way that he's going and continues to improve on his three-point shot, this guy will be MVP competing against guys like Luka Doncic when they hit their 30s.
I mean, you know what we saw
The
last night?
NBA is in an exciting position right now.
We saw last night with Morant. I mean, he's able to just blow by anybody, which Derrick Rose did in his young age. But like every time John Morant has the ball, he's driving down the lane, he's blowing by somebody.
I mean, yeah, 17 to 29. He was all over the court. I mean, six.
And he never misses.
And he
around
grabbed
the rim.
6 rebounds too.
Yeah, he
and
never,
6 assists.
Once he gets around the rim, he very rarely misses when he's around the rim.
And not to mention, he also blocked the ball twice. He was doing everything.
By the way, one was goaltend at the end of the half, but that wasn't called.
Yeah,
So
it happens.
but it counts for his block or a block total.
I mean, but I think you got to love some of the other people on this team. They have a strong lineup, and I think we all knew they were coming into this. When you got to give game high, Steven Adams 14 rebounds, one of my favorite players in the NBA.
Yeah.
When it comes down to it, just a physical beast. You know, from New Zealand, goes back in the off seasons to work on the farm, pushing cows around. Just an absolute unit of a man. He's that old school center you just love to see in the NBA.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
He was with Oklahoma City for so long. I've got to go out and see him play in some games, and I'm just like, sometimes when nobody else is doing good in the game, I just watch him, because he's always going to give you a valiant effort.
Well, obviously, more games on every day. We'll touch on a few here. Probably follow the Cavs more than anybody else. But we're going to flip this over to college football for the last 40 minutes of the show here. So I hope you guys enjoyed the brief baseball and NBA sections. How about we get into this one, boys? Saddest bell ring of the season. The Chanticleers lose to Appalachian State. Second time App State has upset a top 25 team in program history. Obviously, the other one was my favorite. This one, not my favorite. Back in 2007 against that team up north, they pulled it off with the field goal last second. They do it same thing here against Coastal Carolina. And the perfect season for the Chanticleers. I mean, you kind of had a feeling it was coming to an end at some point, but I think you just had to love Chase Bryce's performance for App State. Transfer quarterback out of Clemson and Duke. Finds his way here into App State, and this was a game. Coastal Carolina was up, 14-0 at the end of the first, and 20-14 going into halftime. Second half, though, was completely dominated by App State. Chase Bryce in that third and fourth quarter was just able to move the ball so efficiently, and it came down to the one final field goal in that fourth quarter to end that tied ball game. And you look at this one, it was just fantastic. I think Chase Bryce is the big takeaway from it. Coastal Carolina, I mean, they looked like themselves despite not being able to run the football. Grayson McCall was fine through the air. Nothing big for them, and I think that was their big problem. They didn't have their big playability. App State has a ferocious defense. I mean, this is a team that, despite them coming to this game at 4-2, were practically a team that looked like they should be ranked. I mean, App State has been competing in the FBS these last 3-4 seasons since they made the jump up, and you can't really say anything bad about the Mountaineers.
You really can't. And to be honest, I forgot this game was even on last night because I was switching back and forth between baseball and the Cavs, but I saw the scores, and I was like, there's a college football game on tonight.
I got an
ESPN
update, and it said Chanticleers on upset. I'm like, it's Wednesday. There's a football game on Wednesday?
Right.
Short week.
I don't know.
But yeah, I mean, you look at App State. I mean, they got production out of the quarterback. He played well, and I mean, he got him in position to get the game-winning field goal at the end. So
yeah, they put him in a good spot, and Coastal did their best, but it was just a dominant performance from Appalachian State. I think you just love everything they did in that football game, and they pull off another big upset. We're coming off, some big upsets from this past week, and we get another one here to start out this college football week.
Yeah, I mean, top 15 team. I mean, they're losing somebody unranked. I mean, App State's playing good though. They're 5-2 this year, and they're having a decent year.
Yeah, I mean, you still got to credit. Coastal should stay ranked right now.
They should.
They're
Yeah,
6-1. They have no reason they should fall off, and I'm still getting my flag. Don't want anyone to think I'm jumping off the Chanticleers at this point in time. I'm not jumping off Chants. I want my teal flag.
We're not like that on the show. So.
No,
we don't.
we don't jump off. No. We stay loyal to a fault.
Yeah.
That's why you're
just take a look at all my favorite teams.
Yeah,
like,
you're a Pirates fan.
You know how easy it'd be for me to find other teams?
Yeah.
You know how easy it'd be?
Yeah.
Cavs, Penn State, Pirates, Cowboys. I could find anybody else.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, you don't. So, now we'll get into some college football games for this coming Saturday. Starting off this one, really is the big question mark for the Boilermakers. Can they continue after they pull the upset? They take on Wisconsin. It's back at home for the Boilermakers. They've obviously, everyone knows, they pick up the big win last week against Iowa, 24-7. They dominated that one. But you go back the prior 3 weeks, they looked terrible. I mean, they lost 20-13 to Minnesota. They barely beat Illinois 13-9. Then before that, they lose to Notre Dame by 14. It hasn't looked strong for Purdue. And Purdue, really, it looks like a fluke that they even won this game against Iowa. So I think the big question is, can they keep it up now going against a Wisconsin Badger squad that has been kind of just as up and down and have what is being touted now as the second worst quarterback in the Big Ten in Graham Mertz.
It's been more up and down this year for them.
Yeah,
I mean down than up.
Right. I mean, they pull off a 6-point win against Army last week, and you just have to look at that and you go, I am not impressed with Wisconsin right now. And yeah, they've won 2 of their last 4, 3 of the last 5, but anytime they've faced anyone good, it hasn't been good besides the season opener against Penn State. And there's that point. There was a lot of hype for Wisconsin. The hype quickly died, I think. I mean, and then they got the reality check from Notre Dame. And then Michigan came in and kept pushing them down under the dirt. And then Illinois finally hosted them. All right, we have a chance.
No.
Not going to happen. The Illinois is just they need help.
Football.
They need help. They're good at basketball. They got that. It's
Football,
a basketball school.
Yeah.
So
well, it is a football school, but it's not the last 20 years.
yeah.
10 years.
But I think right now Wisconsin has just as many question marks as Purdue coming into this. And I think you just wonder, can Purdue keep it up? Or is Wisconsin going to come in and pull the second Big Ten upset in as many weeks?
I question if Purdue can keep it up. I mean,
Purdue, man.
Like I said last week, the reason I picked them is because I like picking them in upsets, and they normally come through in upsets. But this one's kind of weird.
It's hard to pick them in regular games.
This one's kind of weird to pick and talk about because, like I just said, and like you just said, they're kind of hard to pick in normal games. But I mean, Wisconsin's defense, it's still good, I guess. I mean, they've been giving up a lot of points lately, but that's probably what they're best at because, like you said, their offense, especially their quarterback, they've been pretty bad this year. So they're going to have to win it on the defensive end.
We'll see if they do it. How about let's make picks here for this game? Wisconsin, Purdue, all go first. The bell staying quiet here. I got the Boilermakers taking this one 26-23 over Wisconsin. And Matt, how about you go next here?
I got to go Purdue as well. I'll go 24-17 Purdue.
I'm going Wisconsin.
Ooh.
I'm going Wisconsin. I'm going to go 21-14.
Low scoring affair. Matt, what was your score?
24-17.
Go ahead.
This just in. Ben Simmons arrived and left 76ers facility without taking part in scheduled workout. Unlikely to play Friday.
So it's like a repeat of the other day.
Yeah, pretty much. And before we get any more into our predictions here for the show, why don't we give you a quick rundown of what happened last week with our predictions for college football. I finally had a down week. Mike took the championship for college football predictions. You went 8-3. I was tied with Matt at 6-5. You took the upsets, and it worked off for you in that last week. Yeah. So perhaps it'll work off again, taking Wisconsin here to start out.
And I did just pick Purdue just to say it. I mean, I really thought they were going to beat Iowa. That's why I went with them.
But in the NFL, I was back on the mark, 11-3 there. Matt, you were also 11-3. Mike, 10-4. Not too bad. Not too shabby in that one. You took the Broncos over the Raiders. Raiders take the win. So that gets the running total from last week. Matt and I tied at 17-8. Mike, 18-7. We were all pretty neck and neck after this past week, so we'll see here what happens now. We'll give a running total towards the end of both these seasons. We'll see how it's all stacking out. But first game underway. Next one. Perhaps another upset coming along here for college football. Keep in mind, we're in that week 8, week 9 shuffle. We always see week 7, 8, and 9 upsets. It's always this time of the year. As a college football fan, you start getting nervous. You're like, this is when it happens. This is when it all goes down.
Yeah.
This one, Oregon Ducks at UCLA. 5-1 for the Ducks, 5-2 for the Bruins. Despite the UCLA being unranked, I think they come into this game potentially, riding a little bit of a high. They've won their last 2, 3 of their last 4, and really just a few slip downs from them. They lose to a high-ranked Arizona State, and they lose to Fresno State in their fluke game. UCLA right now, it looks very similar to the team that we saw ranked at the beginning of the season, and who was on a dominant, streak. So I think UCLA has a big chance in this game, and obviously Charbonnet on the ground is going to be a huge addition for their offense. And we kind of saw it Oregon last week. They kind of stuttered. They don't look like the same team that went into Ohio State and took them down. I mean, DTR for UCLA is starting to find a rhythm, 21-26. Charbonnet in that last game, 131 yards, and DTR 87 on the ground. So
Charbonnet.
I think a big chance right now for UCLA to come out and shock the college football world and hurt a lot of teams. I mean, I think if you look at this one, UCLA wins it, obviously hurting Oregon the most. Ohio State's right behind it, right? Ohio State got beat by this Oregon team pretty well. So, I mean, if you look at that, it goes, well, now Ohio State maybe not so well, but I think this is a different Oregon team than them, so maybe you take it more with a grain of salt.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Obviously,
they
probably
lost their star running back.
Right,
Yeah.
CJ
You
Verdell,
really
I
have
think
to
a big,
take that
big
into
bump.
account. Like,
probably from your standpoint, I don't know if you are, but if I was an Ohio State fan, I'd probably be going for Oregon to win this game because if UCLA loses, that's 2 losses for Oregon. They weren't good losses either, so that makes that loss against them look a little bit worse. But, I mean, with UCLA, you know, they started out good, and now they've kind of been pushed away because of that fluke loss, like you said, against Fresno State. There's no reason to push them aside at all because
No.
they're still playing well, and they still have good, you know, guys that can take over games. So this is going to be a good one.
I like it, and it's a big chance for the Pac-12 right now. The Pac-12 is really finding out who is who right now. They got a lot of early season matchups. Currently, Oregon first place of the Pac-12 North, and Pac-12 South. UCLA sits at 3-1, sitting behind Arizona State and Utah. They have a chance right now to move up, and perhaps this could end up being a rematch we see at the end of the season in the Pac-12 championship. But keep in mind, a loss here by Oregon gets rid of any chance the Pac-12 has at making the playoffs. So it comes down to Oregon today, and I mean Oregon on Saturday. It's going to be a big moment on if they can close this season out. I mean, it's every game counts right now for the Ducks. Obviously, sitting at 10, they're a one-loss team. They almost lose to a one-win team the week prior. UCLA has a chance to cause chaos right now for the Pac-12.
Chip Kelly against his former team.
Yeah.
I mean, you talk.
Both teams have great coaching. I think we got to put that out there.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's why they're in the spots they're in.
Right.
But with Oregon, like you said, it's hard for these Pac-12 teams to get in the playoff because they're not really standout teams. But this is all they have left this year to get a Pac-12 team. So they got to keep it going in Oregon.
Yeah.
I think that's probably the one thing left, right? Oregon's in desperation mode.
Yeah,
they
they are.
have to win. This is
Can't
must-win
lose.
football for Oregon. I mean, it's must-win for the Pac-12, frankly. And keep in mind, ESPN's College Game Day is going to this one in UCLA, so
Ooh, that'll be good.
should be a big atmosphere there in Los Angeles. So we'll see.
It'll be a 6 a.m. start for them out there. Start
Yeah.
the show. It's early.
That'll be an early show for them for sure, but obviously still 9 a.m. for us. Game not till 3:30. It's in UCLA. Let's make picks. Matt, go first.
I think Oregon's kind of depleted. I gotta go UCLA. I say close though. I don't say they blow them out. I gotta go like 24-20.
Matt's liking the 24 so far for the winning
Yeah.
team. Mike, how about you?
I'm still saying Oregon. I'm going 27. We'll go 20.
27-20, another close one. And you know, this is one of those games you kind of feel it. It's a toss-up. I mean, you just either one of these teams, they could pull this one out. They both have the skill guys to do it. I think just the big question mark for Oregon: can they continue to perform when they need to? I mean, they've closed out some close games. They've pulled out when they needed to, and I think tonight, I mean, on Saturday against UCLA on the road, they close it again. I got Oregon taking this
Okay.
one.
That's a smart pick.
You know, I think this is a game they desperately need, and desperation mode set in. Teams play to their best. I mean, look at Purdue. It was a desperation win. They needed to beat Iowa. I mean, if they wanted any shot at the Big Ten West, they had to win. When you have to win, you become the most dangerous animal out there. I have Oregon taking this one 35-20.
Good score.
I'm taking Oregon by 2 possessions there. I just feel like we picked so many close games. Games never end close most of the time. I mean, it goes one way, and you just find out who your better team is. We're going to find out who the best team in the Big 12 potentially is if Oklahoma State can continue to roll. The Cowboys 6-0 right now. Now they head onto the road to take on the Iowa State Cyclones, a team ranked in the top 10 to begin the season. They've fallen off a little bit. They're 4-2. They come off now back-to-back wins following a loss to Baylor 3 weeks ago. 2 losses for Iowa State right now to number 11 Iowa, number 20 Baylor. So it's been a strong performance, and neither one of those losses were terrible. I mean, they lose by 10 to Iowa, 2 points to Baylor, and they've really dominated the rest of the season. Granted, not great competition, but they've won when they needed to, and they've won by decent margins. It hasn't really been close in a lot of those other games. So I think Iowa State comes into this one perhaps with a chip on their shoulder and a little bit more dangerous than I think Oklahoma State could realize.
Yeah, they're going to come in with the chip on their shoulder, like you said, because their 2 losses are against teams like Oklahoma State that were ranked and they were close games, and other than that they looked good. So
keep in mind, Oklahoma State hasn't had a non-close game this season, so it's going to be close.
Yeah,
It's gonna be close.
They've won just once or twice by double digits. One by 11 to Kansas State and by 10 to Baylor.
I mean, and they're going to know that going into this game against Oklahoma State, and they're like you said, chip on their shoulder. They're going to have to win a game like this, number one, but they're going to know that coming in. Hey, we know how it feels to lose 2 games against ranked opponents this year. So let's change it up this time. Let's beat Oklahoma State.
Kind of as we were saying with the rest of these games going on this week, desperation mode set in right now for Iowa State. This would be a big win, would push them back up into the top 25, and keeps them in discussion for the Big 12 championship. I mean, if they go to 2 losses in conference, they're pretty much eliminated, right? When you have Oklahoma and Oklahoma State, who would both be sitting at 5-0 and 4-0 respectively after this weekend, although Oklahoma might be on a bye. No, they do play. They have Kansas this week, so 5-0 and 4-0 respectively for the 2 teams in Oklahoma. So it becomes desperation mode for the rest of the Big 12 to try and pull off these, mid-season wins. Whether it's on the road or at home, desperation mode. What do I just say about teams in desperation mode? They're dangerous. They're dangerous here. So I think it's going to have to be a big game for Oklahoma State. They haven't really had to have a big game where they just had to go all over the place. And you even look at Spencer Sanders in this offense. He's not a big touchdown quarterback guy. I mean, he threw 3 picks against Baylor's defense. Came down to their running game. Jalen Warren with 125 yards in that game with 2 touchdowns. And you even saw the same thing against Texas. He didn't throw the ball much. It was 19 to 32, 178, a touchdown and interception. Jalen Warren on the ground had 193. It comes down to the run game. And we know Iowa State's defense has been fairly strong in the season. And I think you kind of give that defense perhaps an edge if they can get takeaways. We know Oklahoma State's offense, they throw a lot of interceptions because they don't have a great quarterback. And I think that's the one thing that hurts Oklahoma State in this.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it does. And like you said, this is desperation time for all these teams. This is the time of year where guys start separating them, teams start separating themselves. So we're going to see if Oklahoma State does that. I think this is a big one if they can win this one.
Yeah, it kind of puts them up on that, not top tier. I say right below top tier if they win this game. It's putting them up there like, hey, they might make the playoff. It's up there because it's all up. It's all out for
grabs.
Yeah, it's all up for grabs right now because
we're at that midseason shuffle. It's you either come out as one of the strongest teams looking for your final 4 weeks, or you look at a team waiting for everyone else to control your destiny. Yeah. What do we always get to once we get to that college football playoff ranking that comes out in 2 weeks? Control your destiny. That's all the discussion is, controlling your destiny, right? That starts now for Oklahoma State.
The only thing that I think is a dead lock right now to make the playoff is Georgia. The other spots are up for grabs.
It looks like there's 3 spots open right now in the college football playoff. Clearly, the matchup Oklahoma State's looking ahead to, final week before the Big 12 championship, they host Oklahoma.
Going to decide who comes out of that side of the...
There is no sides. It's just top 2 teams, so it could go down into it. Oklahoma takes it in that final game. Oklahoma State takes it in the Big 12 championship. Both teams are in the playoff.
Yeah.
So there's a chance right now Big 12 gets 2 teams in, and I don't think that's something we were saying 3 weeks ago.
Something we haven't said at all the last few years, especially, 3 weeks ago at all the last few years.
Yeah.
So, we'll see.
Well, let's make picks. Mike, why don't you kick it off here?
So, the point spread this game is 6.5. I kind of like that. I like Iowa State to get off, pull off a win on this one. We showed the last 2 wins against ranked teams they lost, and they were close. They stayed in it, so I like to win this one, and I like it. I'll go by a touchdown. I'll go 28-21.
All right. What about you, Matt?
I say Oklahoma State takes it, and I'd say they're going to take it. So I got to go like 30-10.
30-10, not a bad pick either. I just think the offense for Oklahoma State just doesn't seem that good. I was trying to look around at my predictions, and I've been making them a lot before the game, but I keep switching them as we get into the show. Yeah. And, Iowa State, they're dangerous right now. I just feel like Oklahoma State, they just have an edge to them. They play like crap, but they win, and that's what you get down to. It doesn't matter how you play if you win. And Oklahoma State wins. I think it's ugly. I think Iowa State challenges them. I think Iowa State looks like they're going to win this game at some point, but I got Oklahoma State coming out on top, moving higher into the rankings after this week. I have Oklahoma State taking this one. Ugly, I'll say 24-21. So, interesting matchup there.
Same boat as me almost.
Yeah,
Score-wise.
Well, next game up, Matt, I know you've been loving this squad so far in the season. They have their toughest test right now. Clemson Tigers sitting at 4-2, practically number 26 in the country. So that's what we'll say right here. Going up against number 23 Pitt Panthers. It's at home. It's in Pittsburgh, Heinz Stadium. Matt, take it away.
Matt, wait, I have a question for you.
Go ahead. I'm making a note.
Are you actually serious that you like Pitt?
Yeah.
They're a rival.
I mean, we don't play them.
Okay, but they're still our historic. They're like Penn State's best rival.
Yeah, but like they haven't
That's
played
like
in
you
a
like
couple
Michigan.
years, and I wouldn't really call it a rival too much. They make it an in-state rival. I mean, would you
They
really
don't
call
make
it
it
a
that way.
rival?
Look at the history. It is a
We
rival.
always beat them. So I mean, they don't even.
Ohio
play
State always
them
beats
anymore.
Michigan.
It's
That's the best
changed.
rivalry in college
Yeah,
football.
but they play them every year now.
It's
We
still
don't
a
even
rivalry.
play Pitt anymore.
They played them the 4
I like
times.
their team. I just like new young teams.
I like Narduzzi.
Yeah, I like Narduzzi. I have friends that go to Pitt as well, and I've been on their campus a couple times. It is a nice campus there.
Man, you don't always beat them.
I'm
You have a
talking
current
football,
win
though.
streak
I'm
of
talking about
3.
campus.
I'm talking about the campus. What?
You only have a current win streak of 3 against Pitt. Just keep that in mind. It's 53-43 all time. Penn State only leads by
Look at
10.
that. Look how close that is. It's a rivalry.
Yeah,
That's a
that
good
was.
rivalry.
I mean, look back in the '80s. I mean, you had Dan Marino for Pitt.
Okay.
Of course, they're gonna win. And then you had Tony Dorsett in the '70s with Pitt.
I'm just saying, it's like him, like in Michigan.
Yeah.
But
I
go ahead.
don't like.
Spit on 'em.
I'm not like going out and buying stuff for them. I just like what they're doing this year.
I give him
I
credit.
like
what they're
Kenny
doing.
Pickett. I think he's underrated. And
Is he
I'm taking
underrated?
some-
He's
I don't know. He still lost to Western Michigan.
Well, yeah,
And I think that's what you have to look
Yeah,
at here
okay.
on this season. They've played good, but for most of the season, they've played great. A lot of big scoring games for them. They've only gone under 30 points in a
Maybe
game
that was
one
their
time
fluke
this
game.
season. 28-7 win last week over Virginia Tech. On the other side, though, I don't think you can give this one right away to Pitt. This is still Clemson. It's still Dabo Swinney. He hasn't had a great team this year, and they've definitely underperformed far and away. I mean, you look just last week, they nearly lose to Syracuse. Then before that, they nearly lose to Boston College. They lose to NC State. They barely win against Georgia Tech. Barely. Just like Oklahoma State, though. Barely winning. And if you flip those scores around, just barely, they win these football games, and they're number 1 in the country.
Yeah.
This is a team that has been is 2 touchdowns away on the season, away from being the number 1 team in the country.
Yeah, they
Keep
are.
that in mind when we're talking about it. They're only a 2-loss team with losses against top 25 opponents. So I don't think you can just go ahead and give this one to Pitt.
Oh no, not so.
You
not
don't know why
whatsoever.
else I don't just give this one to Pitt, because I think I said it yesterday on the show, and I told Matt this too. It's the same thing with the Steelers. I have a friend that likes Pitt and the Steelers. Same thing with Pitt. Every time they come home, they're looking good on the road. They come home against a team they probably should beat Clemson. I'm not guaranteeing it, but the way Clemson's been playing, they should win this one. Plus the way Pitt's offense has been playing, been putting up numbers like you said. But they always come home and they always have struggle with somebody they should beat, and they always half the time wet the bed. So
something stupid happens. You guys are talking about Western Michigan. Maybe that was their fluke game. A couple of teams had
They
their
didn't
fluke
survive.
games. Ohio State had their fluke game. Looks like it.
I don't
Penn
know
State
if that's a
maybe.
fluke.
I don't know. That's a fluke. That's a top 10 matchup.
Yeah, but they're looking pretty good.
Penn State's on.
Well, but Alabama and A&M, maybe
Yeah.
that was their fluke game. So maybe it was just a fluke game. I don't know. We're gonna find out. Really
Matt,
what
you're
they're made of
riding
here.
your team here. Why don't you lead us off with the picks then? Clemson versus Pitt at Pitt.
You already know it, dude. I gotta go Pitt here. I mean, I like what they're doing so far. Besides that loss, no. I gotta go 24-17. I don't know. I like that score.
Matt, in 3 of his 4 games, has picked the winner to win with 24 points, and now twice he's gone 24-17. So Matt's loving the same score so far. Mike, how about you go ahead? Clemson versus Pitt here.
I like Clemson, and I think I like them to get their offense going a little bit too. I like them. We'll go 30 to. I'll give Pitt 20.
Let's make this interesting because I'm going to clip it later.
30-20. Well, Clemson versus Pitt. You look at the series all the time. I mean, it's neck and neck. There's not two teams that face too much, despite the fact they sit in the same conference.
Yep.
2 wins for Clemson, 2 wins for Pitt. Last 2 games, though, have been controlled by Clemson, and it hasn't really even been close. They've dominated here in those last 2. 52-17, 42-10. You flip it around. Last time Pitt lost, 2016, or pardon me, last time they win, 43-42, Blew it, who is now in the NFL. Won it for them. Before that, though, their only other win came back in Jacksonville, Florida, in the Gator Bowl in a 34-3 win in 1977 for
Tony
Pitt.
Dorsett.
This is Pitt's first time in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, first time they've gotten to host this football game. The other one,
Clemson.
the ACC championship. The other 2 games have been in Clemson. So, first chance for Pitt at home. I just have to think right now, it's still Dabo Swinney. They still are
It's still
loaded.
Brent Venables, too. I mean,
You're really going to compare Brent Venables
Brent Venables is a pretty good coordinator.
to Dabo Swinney.
Well, I'm not going to compare him, but they have him, too.
I think he's saying in addition to Super.
Oh,
It's an addition.
okay.
Yeah, I'm not comparing him. Are you kidding me?
I thought you were... Okay, never mind
They
there.
have him, too.
But I just don't think Pitt has what it takes to take down Clemson. This is a Clemson team that, as I just said, 2 touchdowns and they're the number 1 team in the country. For Pitt, can you really say if they win that other game, they're number 1 in the country? If they beat Western Michigan 44-41, you flip that score around, they're only 23 with 1 loss. You really think they're even sitting inside the top 10? I don't think so. I have Clemson taking this one. Mike, I'm with you. They find their offense. The defense still sucks. But Kenny Pickett keeps it close. But as Blewett's gone, Pitt's going to Blew it. Clemson takes this one 35-32 in Heinz Field. Boom. Take that one.
I like it.
There you go.
I'm not taking Pitt. They're our rival, Matt.
Can't take Pitt.
I can't stay in Clemson.
Alrighty. Another game here. 14 minutes left in the show. We got 4 games left. A big chance for upsets here. We're talking, it's upset week, right? You saw last week, a lot of upsets, a lot of chances here once again. The LSU Tigers, with a lot of controversy going on behind the scenes. Edo's leaving the program after this season. They're 4-3 with a chance to take on number 12 Ole Miss on the road. Ole Miss starting their big stretch here against a good few teams. They got Auburn next week. Perhaps Ole Miss gets caught in the look ahead, especially after a struggling performance in their last game against Tennessee. They come off another close game the week before. They win by 1 against Arkansas. Ole Miss might just be sleeping a little bit coming in here. LSU, they're going to be hosting this one. It's Eli Manning night. They're hosting Arch Manning, who just saw them last week against Tennessee. So, there's a lot going on, and I think there's too many distractions for Ole Miss. It could be their trap game.
Could be, and it's a good win if they get this one. Because LSU, they're 4-3 and they're having some hard times, but they still played good in most of their games. So it's a good win if Ole Miss can get this one.
I think it comes down to Matt Corral, right? 231 yards to the air, 195 on the ground. This game solely relies on him, and I think that's the one problem they have.
That's your guy.
It's solo football.
Yeah.
Solo football doesn't always win. And it's going to come down as a big question mark, and I think that also hurts them in recruiting. Arch Manning's going to come visit and see, it's one guy on this offense, and they don't have a defense that goes with it. LSU, on the other hand, despite the fact, they've been up and down this season, they kind of seem like a more complete team. They just kind of play as a unit, whether they win together or they lose together, and they've had some bad losses. You look at it, they lose to a ranked Kentucky, a ranked Auburn, and at the time, a ranked UCLA to open up the season. The rest of their wins, though, they've played good football, and I think that's the one side you got to look at it. Plus the win over Florida Gators last week.
Yeah.
This is a strong LSU team, despite the fact that they've had issues. Tyron Davis-Price, 287 yards that last game. He's got to come in hot again, and Max Johnson has to just put up the same performance he did because LSU has a chance.
If it wasn't for the fancy play of Bill Nix, they would have won that Auburn game.
Yeah.
Bill Nix went from one side of the field to the other and still made a fantastic pass, which doesn't happen all the time. We just got the good version of Bill Nix that week, and that's why they won. So that one they could very well have won.
Give us your pick. LSU, Ole Miss. Matt Corral keeps it strong, or do the Tigers take it?
I'm going to do this in respect of Coach. Go Tigers!
Go Tigers, give us
I
the
gotta
score.
go. I'm not gonna go the same score. Don't worry. We'll go 30-24.
30-24 for the Tigers. What about you, Mike?
I'm going LSU in this game. I like them 31-27.
31-27.
I
Well,
think it's going to be another close one like it was last week against Florida.
yeah, I mean,
They put 17.
Mike, we were in that store in the mall that they're selling those Go Tigers hats, so it's spelled like,
Yeah.
you know, like Joe Burrow, but you know,
Yeah.
yeah, the fancy.
Right.
I don't know how to spell it.
Geaux?
Yeah, something like that,
There
yeah.
you go, Matt. So, LSU, Ole Miss, I mean, we've been talking about it. I think we kind of look at Ole Miss on the season. A lot of question marks on the other side. The one problem I see with LSU, they can't win against ranked teams. They're facing a ranked team, a top 12 team in the country, that, 3 touchdowns away from being the number 1 team on the other side. This is a team, if they beat Alabama, they're right there sitting at number 2 or number 1, probably number 2 behind Georgia. But they'd have what might be considered the best win in college football if they could have beaten Alabama in that game. And it was one they just had an off week.
Yeah.
Ole Miss, other than that, has looked near perfect so far this season in terms of Matt Corral. He has been off the charts, and right now I think I'd almost have him as the favorite for the Heisman. With his performances, he had one down game.
Right now,
and I don't
he's
think
probably
you
my
can
favorite.
kind of look. I think you can look away from him in that one down game. You guys took the upset in here. I was thinking about it. I was that close to taking this upset. I originally went Ole Miss. Then I was like, I think LSU might take it. I'm going back to the Coral Blue with Matt Corral hosting Manning Day. They're not losing with Eli and Arch in the house. It ain't gonna happen. The Rebels take this one big at home. I don't think it's close. I think Ole Miss takes this thing 42-24.
All right.
Boom. How do you like them apples?
Changing up again. Changing majors.
Yeah, well, it happens. This one, I know it's lopsided, but I just think we have to look at Ohio State just for a brief minute here. On the road, Indiana
course.
Hoosiers. Well, no, Hoosiers have had some, they come off the tough game against Michigan State, and that was at home. And at home this season, they've looked okay. It's been on the road when they've struggled the most. And you look when they hosted Cincinnati earlier this season, they only lose by 2 touchdowns, and they lose by 5 points to Michigan State at home. So playing in Indiana is becoming a different monster than I think it has been in prior years. And Ohio State has a 25-game win streak going against Indiana right now. They haven't lost since 1989. It probably not going to happen again. But I just think, we kind of talked about them yesterday. It's a night game. It's in Indiana. And we saw last year, this was a closer game than a lot of people expected.
Yep.
It was like 35-28, something
Yeah, but
right
Indiana
around
was
there.
better last year.
They were better, but a lot of the same players still reside on that team, and obviously no Michael Penix. I just think Indiana can still look strong in this game, despite a blowout. I think we're all going to take Ohio State here, but I just think you kind of have to look at this as a double-edged sword for Ohio State, avoiding the fluke.
I mean, I know yesterday I was talking about Tuttle for Indiana and did some good things about Michigan State, but I got nothing on this game. It's not going to be close.
Okay,
45-10. I'm not even wasting my time on anything.
go ahead.
Will we see an upset? No. Buckeyes up. Oh, Mike, I like your score, but I don't think they're going to score that much. Probably like 50-3.
50-3 for Matt. Apparently he's got even a little bit more confidence than I do in Ohio State's defense. I have Ohio State taking this one big. I mean, Ohio State, they're back to it, right? They just kind of seem like they have a rhythm again. 52-7, I got the Buckeyes. I'm always wary of having to pick my own team, but, didn't work when I had to pick the Browns the other week. We'll see what happens here with tonight's game. We'll make predictions on that here before we wrap up the show. Minnesota versus Maryland. I think a good matchup for Big Ten play. 4-2 Maryland, 4-2 Golden Gophers. Winner probably moves into the top 25. And it's a big shot right now for both teams needing wins in the Big Ten. One on the Big Ten West side, one on the Big Ten East. Big matchup right here, and I think it's a great game for Minnesota. They've struggled in their last 3 games. I mean, a 4-point loss to Bowling Green, 7-point win against Purdue, 7-point win against Nebraska. Maryland on the other side obviously just got wiped in their last 2 games by Ohio State and Iowa. So potential for them to get a bounce-back win in desperation mode. What about you, Mike?
I mean, both teams are desperate. They're kind of finding themselves. I mean, they really haven't been able to find themselves all year so far. I don't have a score yet, so go to Matt first.
Matt, go ahead. Give us your prediction.
I like Maryland. I like Tagovailoa, but yeah, I gotta go Minnesota. I think they're a more tougher team, physical team. So I gotta go 30 to 24.
They're at 24. I'm going Minnesota as well. Row the boat once more. 5-2. Get Minnesota back up there. Makes Ohio State's win look better.
Yeah.
And I got them taking it. 2 touchdowns, 35-21. Mike, what's your score here? Who you got winning?
I got Gophers, and it's kind of similar to Matt's. I'm going 33-24.
I think this Maryland team, I think all they need is maybe a more solid running back and a couple of receivers, maybe a couple more big guys on the line, and maybe add a couple of defensive guys, and they're going to be ready.
So they need a whole new team is what you're saying.
Because
they need like 5 guys on offense, 6 guys on defense, then they're good to go.
Mostly offense, because they need guys to,
All right, man, we're moving away from this
guys.
one. Next game, we're taking one game down on the big slate. 3-3 ECU. The Pirates have a chance to knock off Houston Cougars, who sit at 5-1 in the season. It's been a great season so far for Houston, but could be facing their first trap game. This is a dangerous Eastern Carolina team. It's one of those teams that they kind of are up and down all the time. And keep in mind, they lose by 14 to App State to open the season. Then they lose to an SEC team, a bad SEC team at that, but just by 3 points. They get wins over Marshall, Charleston Southern. They beat Tulane. Then they come in there, and they come up just short of UCF. So I think this is a game, despite the record for ECU, they have a chance. What do you guys think? Give me your picks.
I definitely do have a chance. I'm
Matt, score?
30-27.
Okay, close one.
I want to take Eastern Carolina, but I don't.
Take it.
I just have trouble picking a score if I pick them. I'm going with them. Screw it. I'm going.
Take the Pirates. You're a Pirates fan. You got to roll.
That's why I'm doing it.
17-10.
I was gonna go 28-27.
Oh.
Okay. 28-27, you go to the Pirates. I'm taking Houston 48-45. One final prediction before we wrap things up here. NFL Thursday night football. Browns without a lot. They're going to have to rely on Case Keenum. Jarvis Landry activated before the game, along with Jedrick Wills as well. He'll be playing. So at least one of the tackles back for the offensive line. A lot of guys out on defense. It's going to be tough for the Browns here. What do you guys think? Give us your pick.
Mike, go first.
I still kind of want to pick the Browns.
Me too.
There's a lot going on, but I mean, they still have a strong team, and that's just it. I mean, Broncos kind of haven't looked great in the last few weeks.
They haven't looked great, and sometimes when you have a bunch of guys out, teams still find ways to win. So I'm going Browns. I'm going them. I think it's gonna be an ugly one. I think. They were talking about today for this game, it might be raining a little bit, so it's going to be an ugly one.
All right, Matt, how about you give your pick here? Browns, Broncos, pick it.
I gotta go Browns, man.
Ooh. We all went Browns last week. It didn't work out. We'll see if it works out this week. So, Browns, we're all taking them. Obviously, I got to roll with the Brownies.
Keenum will make another miracle happen, like he did in Minnesota.
Keenum's been great under Stefanski. So, I mean, they were 12-4 when he was with them in Minnesota.
That's the main reason why I think I'm picking them.
Well, we'll see if the bell tolls some more this weekend. That's going to do it here for the Casual Sports Podcast. I'm Alec Caberna. That's Mike Wolfgang. That's Matt Morrison. Tune in tomorrow. We're making all our picks for the NFL, high school football preview, and, of course, baseball, NHL, and NBA. Make sure to tune back in. That's going to send it off here from Youngstown. We'll see you all later. Check out Power Hour next on ysnlive.com.